Dyble, Councillor Sluman, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion carries. Adoption of the minutes. Item 3A, minutes of the regular council meeting held May 24th. Motion to adopt, please.
So moved.
Councillor Crop and Councillor Smith. Questions or comments pertaining to minutes? Okay. All those in favor? Thank you. Item B, a record of the public hearing held May 24th. Motion to adopt as presented, please.
Second.
Councillor Erickson moving, Councillor Crop seconding. Questions or comments pertaining to the record of the meeting, rather? All those in favor? Thank you. And motion that the minutes of the special council meeting held May 30th be adopted as presented, please. Thank you, Councillor Dyble. Seconded, please.
Second.
Second. Thank you, Councillor Smith. Those in favor? Okay. Sounds good. Looks like Ms. Dahlman did a bang-up job again. Yeah. Okay, and under delegations, Mr. Tom DeSorsi, our fire chief, and hello. Is Mr. Goosen in attendance?
Yes, sir.
Oh, right there. Okay, there we have it.
We're all here.
Perfect. Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. Just come here tonight as a delegation to answer a question of Council where the point was raised as to wildfire protection in the community, wildfire preparedness in light of what's been going on in Alberta, in Fort McMurray, those places, in Fort St. John. So I took the opportunity to invite Alan Dawson to join me. Alan is a Forest Protection Officer at the with Wildland Management Branch at Hague Fire Base, and also a member of our fire department. So I'll get Al to come up here and step up. Sorry to do with lights in here, but just to do a little quick rundown on what we have in our backyard. A lot of people may not know or may know that we have a fire base with Wildland Management Branch and Hague Fire Base, staffed accordingly to assist in wildland around and certainly help through mutual aid with the fire departments, us and other fire departments in the area. So I'll get Al maybe just to give a quick little rundown for council, just to say just what conditions are. We didn't do a PowerPoint. We didn't want to, because this is live. This is like today at noon, the current conditions. It's live on the internet, and it's also linked from our website on Community Fire Safety. You can get to the site to get to the fire danger rating. So I'll let the professional explain what those mean, and I'll talk a little bit more after that, if you don't mind. Please.
Appropriate place for me.
Probably somewhere where you're
We're
right there. Perfect.
So as Tom said, I do work for the BC Wildfire Service, as we're newly called. That change was made last year. Is it all right if I stand here?
Absolutely.
Okay, it's a little bit more comfortable. And I do work out of the Hope Fire Base here, which we refer to as the Hague Fire Base. You know, it's on the Highway 7 on the way out of town towards Agassiz. Tom has asked me to kind of give a quick rundown of what we have for resources around here. So in Hope itself, we've got a 20-person unit crew. We've got 4 initial attack crews. That's three-person per crew. And they come with their own kind of 550 fire trucks. So we've got 4 of those as well. There's myself, an assistant, who work out of this office here, and then we've also got in Cultus Lake another 20-person unit crew, as well as 3 more officers. So really quickly, that's a fair number of people in one geographic area. So we've got quite a few resources on hand. Of course, we do share those provincially and nationally. So just as a point of interest, some of those crews have been out for their 3rd time already on 2-week deployments. And all of those deployments have been in the interior or up north, where a lot of the activity has been going on this year so far. So that's a real quick picture of what we have on hand and kind of what things look like for them so far. The other thing Tom kind of asked me to do was to contrast this year a little bit to last year. I'm not sure how closely you paid attention to the situation last year, but right about this time is when we started to get going. Underlying conditions were extremely dry. The season in the coastal region, which is basically the island and this stretch right up in here, is what most of us are kind of referring to as unprecedented. These are conditions that we never have really experienced recent memory, so that, that season kind of knocked our pants off a little bit, to be frank. So again, I guess the point I would bring up there is what we've experienced so far this year has been, I won't say limited, but mostly occurring up in the northern areas of BC and Alberta. Fort St. John, Dawson Creek, Chetwynd, those areas have been experiencing quite a bit of activity. We have certainly had the conditions that I'd say are similar in some effect to last year, but now, as you can tell, we're getting a weather event that we didn't get last year. So this rain has I wouldn't say erased the potential, but it's greatly reduced it. So this map right here, it's what we call our fire danger rating. It's color coded, and it would kind of go with what your instinct is. Red is very dangerous, blue is fairly benign. So you can see we're down here, we're in the green and blue, so that's between no hazard and minimal hazard. Sort of forgot my train of thought there. So I guess there's a couple of perspectives to think about. One is we did have an extremely dry spring. It came very early, and we saw our hazard rise very quickly, and so that would have been reflected on this map. And I think locally we probably would have gotten up into a coloring range of that darker orange to potentially even in some areas a red, which is not normal. But with the recent rains, you can see we've come back down a little bit. I would say, you know, from the weather we're hearing, that potential will probably underlie our summer throughout. So what we'll probably see is if we do begin to see warmer weather, that drying trend will happen quicker than normal. But again, if we see cooler, wetter weather, it will moderate that hazard. And as far as what the forecasts are saying, potentially from what I've heard, a little bit warmer than normal, but precip, they're not calling for a summer like last year. So they are indicating that we could see normal ranges of rain. When you get down into the nitty-gritty, they'll tell you that the summertime is extremely hard to predict. You don't get your typical rain trends, but that's something to pay attention to. Is if we're getting some rain, we're probably doing okay, and if we stop getting that rain, we start getting the warm temperatures, we could see a rise in hazard very quickly.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. So that leads into whether or not we get involved in campfire bans, those kind of things throughout the season, throughout the summer season. Just a quick explanation. I always try and like to tell people that a campfire ban, if and when it is issued by the province, is something that we will follow. The municipalities are not required to implement a campfire ban. The province has no jurisdiction over those communities that have fire establishment bylaws, which we do have. So we have to put our own fire ban in. It makes sense to put it in because publicly it's being publicized, it's being advertised very widespread. So it makes sense for us to be a part of that and go along with it so that we don't see a lot of 911 calls from the freeway, the highway, for people that see smoke from a legal campfire in our community, which they won't know is a legal campfire. So that's what we try and do. So, with that being said, any questions at all I can answer?
Mr. Nye.
If it ever got as bad as Fort McMurray, God forbid, how would we be evacuated?
Well,
which way would we go?
Exactly, depending on where it comes from. You know, we in our evacuation plans for different reasons, for different things, it determines which way we're going to go. Again, you'd have to think that if you've got forested area involved, that you're going to send people in a different direction. Going in all directions, away from fire, would be the first answer. We've got an opportunity that Fort McMurray didn't have, and correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't been there, but they had one way in and one way out, or like two left or right, right? We've got several ways out if we had to do that. The key message, I brought some pamphlets I would like to leave behind for tonight. If the gallery would like to take some home, we've got them available at the town office as well. It's important to be, this is the plug for emergency preparedness. It's important to be ready to leave your home for anything, for a fire, a wildfire, an earthquake, a flood, that you have the ability of people in Fort McMurray ran out of gas because their vehicles weren't filled with fuel. That fire came fast in Fort McMurray, as did Kelowna when I was in Kelowna back in the day. The fire moves fast, it comes really quickly, but you're given a fair amount of warning that you should be prepared. So I'll leave those pamphlets so people can take a look at emergency preparedness for their neighborhoods and for their personal at home, and what to have prepared for a kit and such. So, okay.
Councillor Stewart?
So, thanks very much. It was me that brought that up at the council meeting 2 times ago.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering, just for the folks at home that may be out thinking about starting a fire in the woods for having a party or whatever, just maybe some safety tips about what they can do to make sure that they don't walk away with it being lit and things like that. For me, there's a concern in the area I live in because of that windstorm. There's still a lot of dead wood hanging out in the woods. So if you could just maybe give some safety tips. I know they're no-brainer, but sometimes you have to say it.
Well, common sense is often forgotten by a lot of people. And, you know, when we have people in backyards that were burning, we knew the burning complaints were going to increase. The concerns of people backyard burning after the ice storm last year. And that was the case. It did increase. We had people burning their debris in the backyard. We try, and we being the fire department, myself, the other officers that do enforcement and bylaw enforcement, trying to have that fine line where there's no risk of fire spread or fire becoming a danger. It's more of a smoke concern. There is a certain part of us that want to have fuel reduction. We want to have that fuel taken away. We use that opportunity as an education piece to tell people this is what you can do in recycling and hope. You don't have to burn your stuff because you can get rid of it a better way for the environment. When it comes to fire safety in this time of the year, then there's no question. We ask people to put them out and not have them. They're not allowed to be in their backyards. Campfires, fires that are small and for the use of purpose of cooking food and keeping warm, those are still allowed. We have campgrounds that are within our municipality, so they're allowed as part of their business, obviously, and certainly by responsible people in their backyards to have a warming fire. That's allowed for as long as we can. Again, those that are out in the forested areas are more than, well, they are doing it wrong. They're illegal. They're not allowed to have the fires. In the fire department, we usually hear about them at midnight when there's something going on, and we get called out to a pallet fire along the right of way of the gas pipeline and stuff. We've been there a couple of times out there and having to deal with that with police. So that becomes an enforcement issue. So at the very end of the day, you shouldn't be having a fire if you don't have a means of properly extinguishing it and making sure it is extinguished when you leave it, whether it be in a forested area or a campground. That's just common sense. So.
Thank you very much for responding to that concern.
My pleasure.
For doing this.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Hines?
Just a small question.
Absolutely.
Are people allowed to barbecue in Memorial Park?
Allowed to barbecue in Memorial
Yeah,
Park?
you know, have a barbecue.
We allow that during, events, special events and things. We allow that. Like we've had the salmon competition.
Right.
Those kind of things. So yeah, those are allowed, again, usually under permission and for a large event.
But I mean, if an individual or their family go there, are they allowed to do
I don't think
that?
there's any rules that say you can't.
Okay.
Again, a barbecue's a gas burning device. I don't think there's no restrictions in our parks that don't allow you to cook food. And burning a fire and putting out the firewood and stuff like that would be certainly prohibited on our lands.
Right.
On public land, on district-owned property for any fires.
But if it's a propane barbecue, it's all good.
It's all good in my opinion, from a safety perspective. It's
That's
all
what I'm
good.
asking.
Oh, certainly it's all good. From a bylaw perspective, I'm not sure. I don't think it is. I think that it's you're allowed to have because it's safe and, that's that kind of thing. So it's not an issue.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Sorgi. And the other thing, and this was an idea that I recently went to a conference, and a gentleman I bumped into, he's in a community that was surrounded by a lot of forest and a fire hazard, and I don't expect an answer to this inquiry, but because it's kind of a peculiar concept. But what his community is looking at is they're looking at putting a belt of aspen trees around the community, because I guess they're essentially a weed tree. They're kind of like a poplar concept. They don't have a lot of commercial value, but they're so super saturated in water that they act as a fire barrier around communities that do it. So might be nice in your travels with other fire chiefs, it'd be nice to see.
To see.
Yeah, you know, which communities have done that and the kind of results they've received, because I guess it does act as a natural fire barrier if you have a certain depth. And it'd be kind of neat with a community forest, if there's logging activity, if it's done in a way around the community that actually acts as a natural fire barrier that reduces the risk of, you know.
I can only imagine. I would refer to Al to comment, if any, on doing that kind of. Usually fire smarting a community is taking any fiber, any wood away from proximity, but it's an interesting concept. So
Yeah.
I'll look into it.
Did you want me to speak to it?
If you want, sure, please.
Yeah, deciduous would typically burn less vigorously than conifers. And so it would be a strategy that's been used in certain places. The effectiveness of it, you'd have to look into for this particular area, and that would probably be part of kind of community wildfire prevention planning. Or CWPP type stuff. The treatment that ends up being prescribed would vary depending on your fuel type and various situations. So, it would be interesting to see what a forestry professional would say about that.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's used in some communities and seems to work. So.
Yes, and there's actually an example in Manning Park where they've converted to a deciduous species around buildings.
Yeah.
So that would be one example where you could maybe look into that as part of their Fire Smart program.
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize about previous name pronunciation. I think I called you Goose.
That's all right.
We have a number of goose families, or had. And,
So
I'm kind of in that mode where I'm used to saying goose.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Got that right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, under item 5, staff reports, report from the Director of Operations pertaining to the Station House project and path forward. Maybe we'll start with Mr. Forlowski speaking to it.
Good evening, Your Worship Council. Just a quick recap. On the 30th of May at the special council meeting, council directed staff to draft a consultation plan in order to move the Station House project forward. What my colleague Kevin Dickens has produced is that draft plan, but before I turn it over to him, one of the first planks to be developed in discussing this project with council and the development of the project really is financial or risk tolerance. So as you move forward through the project, bear in mind, and that's one of the first questions you should ask yourselves and ideally get agreement on through the consultation plan, is how much money ultimately is council prepared to spend, because it will temper the decisions moving forward, i.e. what is the scope of design, what can be put into it, and more importantly, what can't sometimes when stakeholder groups and the public are involved, and rightfully so, moving forward with the project. So I'd like to pass it over to my colleague Kevin. Thank you.
Your Worship Council, so as directed from the May 30th meeting, I put together a draft consultation plan for your review and consideration. I also identified 4 potential stakeholders with the Station House project. This is not to say that those are the only 4 out there. It's just the 4 that I was most confident in putting down that I know would have an interest and have shown an interest in the project to date. So I've laid out a 4-phase consultation process, and much of this we began to discuss at the previous council meeting. Phase 1 of the consultation process would be council discussing the way forward amongst themselves and their vision for the project, what they wanted to get out of the project. That would be a natural starting point for council to get on the same page, so to speak, with regards to Station House. Phase 2 would be to call for stakeholder consultation, and this would be advertised for any potential stakeholder group that may have interest in Station House to come forward and provide input to council at that point on feedback actually on council's sort of desired way forward with the project, and also to give feedback from their point of view as well. Phase 3 would be similar to the stakeholder consultation, would be a public consultation where at a committee of the whole meeting, the general public would have an opportunity to speak to the project and provide suggestions and and feedback for consideration of council. And phase 4 would ultimately, the goal of phase 4 would be to determine a preferred option to move forward with the project. And that would, include sufficient detail on, how much this project, how much work would go into the building, how much ultimately council, through consultation with the public and the stakeholders, would be comfortable spending on the project. And as Mr. Portalowski alluded to, that would sort of set the parameters moving forward as to what the project would look like. And, if we were to move forward with design, how much rigor would be put into that design as far as fit and finish of the building, et cetera. So what staff are looking for tonight from council is, potentially endorsement of this consultation process moving forward, or feedback on any additional changes you may want to the consultation process at this time. And that would be what we'd be looking for tonight is agreement on the way forward as far as consultation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dickon. A couple of quick things, and then I'm sure we'll have lots of council discussion on this. I have that sneaky suspicion. I guess everyone knows roughly the history of the project, but obviously for over a decade, a lot of folks have been interested in converting this area to this particular property to a tourist info center. And some time ago, Advantage Hope and District worked together to start to make that process happen. Mr. Bennett, actually, I think the last president of the society that was in charge of the Junction building is here tonight too, and he got together with Advantage Hope and turned the building over and to the district from the society. And so a lot of good work has taken place to date. The Kale quantity surveying estimate that we received a little while ago clearly indicated that the value that we got for the money we put in with Mr. Fletcher's contracting operation and Advantage Hope as the project manager, we did get good value for the money. So it is structurally sound as a building. So a lot of the heavy lifting's been done, but there's still a long way to go. This process here at this point, I'm very supportive of it, so that we have a very clear path forward, and that the public is consulted and very aware of what we're up to. If council is supportive of the 4 phases as proposed by Mr. Dickon, I think it's very important that we put timelines on the 4 phases so that we know roughly when these will be completed, so that staff isn't left in an awkward spot, and that the public is well aware of what and when we're planning to do it. So I think we've moved in the right direction, but we got a ways to go yet. So council discussion on this matter, and I think Councillor Croft, you beat everyone else to the punch here. So.
Okay, thank you. So thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. One thing that I was going to comment was, of course, the timelines. I'd like to see something like that put into place. I'm interested in the workshop facilitator. I think that would be an opportunity for us to really not only hash out some of the basic fundamental details that we're going to need, but also to incorporate ideas from the public. Of course, if it costs an arm and a leg, we can't do it, but if it's something reasonable, I think that we should certainly consider it. I'm very happy about the way you've laid out the proposed phase process to get us to where we need to go. I wish we would have done it in the beginning, but of course, I'm so proud of council because we listened to people and we took a step back, and not backwards, but certainly a step back to really get the best product at the end of the day for the community and for the future, and for the future people that are coming to our community. So good on council for that, and staff for tolerating us as we're going through this painful process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Croft. Comments from council? Councillor Mello.
Yeah, thank you through you. I'd like to hear what staff thinks would be reasonable, workable timelines for each of these sort of stages. You obviously thought about it, I hope.
Yeah, I think you're probably looking at, as these need to be scheduled within committee of the whole meetings, you're probably looking at months. I'd say 3 or 4 months to get this done.
Well, I think, given those timelines, I would personally be very keen on having a few special meetings, just to, because it tends to rain a lot more in the fall here, so if we want to get some, outdoor work done, it'd be nice to utilize the nice weather and get this going sooner than later. Staff be amenable to that, of course, if they can accommodate, but I think it's important we go through the process, but 3 months to me would be a little bit long-winded. Councilor Dial?
Thank you, through you. So I guess, of course, I'm concerned of the cost of the consultant, but we do need to have someone facilitate the process and provide us some recommendations, so it needs to come from an outside source. So any thoughts around what that cost may look like?
It depends on if you wanted the whole, all 4 phases facilitated, or if you wanted a facilitator just for the initial phase with council.
I suppose I'm in favor of having a facilitator for all of the phases
For all
of the
4 phases.
process. And then a report to be drafted up to outline what those recommendations are.
Okay.
That's my personal.
Councilor Stewart?
So thank you to staff for the report. I guess my concern would be the phased approach. I think we were all in agreement that council needs to get together and do a workshop and come to an understanding about how we're going to proceed and, just collectively as a group, have that conversation. So my concern is that this is a long-term partnership. This is like a marriage. It's something that we're going to do and we're going to agree to do for a long period of time. And to essentially get it done is not a successful partnership. So I prefer if we could just take a logical approach and make sure that this is a partnership and a marriage that's going to last a long time and be successful. So I am leery about a phased approach, and I don't particularly want to take that approach.
Well, I think that to put the phased approach in context, there's an opportunity for council to get together as a group. There's an opportunity for the stakeholders that are involved in that. I mean, we can't just say as a council, okay, this is what we're doing to heck with public input. That might not go over too well. So, and I know that's not what you're saying, but I think there is a natural chronology of these phases. The 4 phases do, I think, make sense. I just think 3 months is too long a timeline, but I obviously go with the majority, so it's just one out of 7 opinions here. But yeah, I just think there's a lot of interest in seeing this succeed in the community, and engaging the stakeholders is not a bad thing. And also, like for instance, there's been a lot of talk about, say, the Hope Mountain Center being a tenant in the basement of the facility. I think Communities in Bloom, Chamber of Commerce, other groups, Arts Group. I mean, there's a lot of merit to that, but we have to find out what will that entail? Will they essentially pay for utilities, or will it be a small lease payment if they use the facility, or will it be open to all community groups? I think that's not a question that we can answer as a council alone. We have to consult those groups. Yeah.
So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. That's not exactly what I was saying. I'm just saying that the phased approach with this project for 1.5 years now has been, let's put $700,000 in the budget for the purposes of applying for a grant. Well, now we've got $700,000 in the bank. I'm just saying that as a council and the owners of the building, that we could actually look at the project and decide how that building space could be used and what our intention is for the building. That's all I was saying.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Erickson, Councillor Medlock.
Through you, thank you. I am similar with the last speaker with the stakeholders. The District of Hope owns the building. And when we build a building to meet the needs of the District of Hope. The stakeholders may not be there next year, the year after, we don't know. We build a building to facilitate what we need. And those who occupied will come in after once the building's built. For example, if we build a building to house, that if we as council say we build a building to house the Tourist Information Center, well, the Tourist Information Center, we don't know who's gonna be running the Tourist Information Center 5 years down the road. It may be Advantage Hope, it may be somebody else. It may, but we have to build the building the way we need it. I don't know if the stakeholders should even be uncompensated. The public should have consultation. I like that idea. But the stakeholders, who we think are stakeholders today, may not be stakeholders tomorrow. And so we have to build a building, as I see it, that the District of Hope needs, and then facilitate from there. I think we have to be really careful, because there may be more people that want to be in the building because it's free. Or is it going to be free? Or are we going to charge rent? We don't even know that. That's why I think the very first thing, developing an option, developing a workshop for council, I think that's most crucial, and we need to do that quickly. Otherwise, we're going to get all mixed up and spun out of line here. I think we have to have that so we know where we're going, and then we can say, okay, maybe we should have stakeholders, maybe we should have, the public should be involved. Once we know where we're going, once we know how much money we're going to spend, once we know what the purpose is, once we know when we want to be in, and all the time. We haven't even done it yet. Thank you.
Well, speaking to just addressing that quickly, and then, like, we take a look at the Hope Mountain Center. They're a very robust group. They're doing well in the community. They may not be here in 20 years, but they're here now, and I think their opinion matters now. Same with Communities in Bloom, Chamber of Commerce, Advantage Hope. They're all current stakeholders, and I think we have to involve them in the discussion in some way. We can't just, because I have no idea what the Hope Mountain Center needs for space. Zero idea. And I don't think any of us on council have that idea, or the Communities in Bloom group. So, yeah.
So we're gonna build a building for them?
Well, it's for the use of the community.
For the stakeholders?
It's for the use of the community.
Then it could be a very different building than what we're doing. If we're gonna build it for, how do we know, maybe the Chamber of Commerce, maybe some other society comes in, senior citizens wanted to play golf in there, or mini golf or whatever. We don't know that for the stakeholders. I think we should be very careful. We have to decide what we want the building for first, and then after that, then, that's what I say.
Okay, Councilor Midland?
Thank you. So council has already resolved that the building is going to be used for the Tourist Info Center and Museum. That was a resolution of council. So I don't think we need to go back to that part of the drawing board. I think what we need to discuss with all of these consultation sessions is more the look and feel of the building and how far we want to go, and of course the costs are part of that. Yeah, it's already been decided what the use is for. Now, being that the use has been decided that it's a visitor center and museum, it seems only logical to invite the current people that are running the visitor center and museum, because they have the most current information on what their needs would be. Maybe they aren't going to be the people that are there in the future, but you can't base a decision on what ifs down the road. You need to base it on information that you have today. So that's why they need to be involved. But like I say, it doesn't need to go back to the drawing board. It just needs to be one step back, decide how far we're going to take it, what it's going to look like, to what level of finish, and which will affect dollars.
Okay. We have a couple on this side here. Councilor Smith, you have your hand?
No.
No, okay.
Councilor Medlock, no.
Okay.
Thanks, I know I'm taking a bit of time here, but the reason I want to is because I can understand some of council's comments here, but I also like to bring up some of my experience in that we've done different things, like we've got bridges in our community that we went out to the public consultation for. Because why? Because they were using it. We've got a pool and library, and we spent over a year, 2 years in public consultations because they were using that facility. Some of those people are no longer here, and new ones have come. The basic idea was to make sure that because it's a council initiative but a community facility, that everybody gets an opportunity to share in the results at the end of the day. And if everybody has an opportunity to be included, that means it's their building and our building in terms of where the people getting it motivated and going, yes, but it's everybody's building in the community. And we've got a lot of people that volunteer in our community, and the more people feel part of these projects, if I can't have my say on that project, well, I'm not really gonna utilize that building, and I'm not probably even gonna volunteer my time on that one. So initial discussion with council is paramount, because we kinda have to set the budget, where the guy's gonna be taxing or not for those future needs for that facility. So we definitely have to set the ground framework, and after that, we definitely wanna hear, in my opinion, from the user groups. And so that's why I like the phased approach.
Okay, Councilor Stewart, Councilor Dodd.
So I just want to make it really clear, I don't have anything against the stakeholder, meeting with stakeholder groups or public consultation or option number 4. I don't have a problem with that, actually, I embrace that. Public participation is something that I really believe in. Where my concern is by lumping them all together. So what I would like to see is the initial consultation with council, and then let's decide what direction we're gonna go after that. Are we gonna meet with the public first? Are we gonna meet with the stakeholders first? What direction are we gonna go from there? I think by putting them in the order, that's where I'm uncomfortable, but I do believe that we all need to meet with the partner groups. I just am uncomfortable with approach.
Okay, sorry, so through you, Mr. Mayor, just quickly.
Actually, Councilor Dodd.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
I suppose I appreciate the layout, because I'm a linear processor, so for me, I think that the layout makes sense. I believe that we can't say that these groups might not be there in the future, we might not be here in the future, and we're making decisions on this project today. So I think that these groups, along with us, we're making the best decisions in this moment of 2016 for the community. So whether it's a list of 4 community stakeholder groups or 10 community stakeholder groups, you know, here today, gone tomorrow is really what we gotta think about, and what's best for the community 10, 15, 20 years out. So I'm in favor of the process, I appreciate that. I would actually like to see something completed and finalized for September, so we could get into the rural dividend for the fall intake. I know that that's probably an aggressive timeline, but I think that we have to look at being somewhat aggressive in moving forward on this initiative.
Okay, Councilor Crawford, Councilor Erickson.
Thanks. I just, I'm a little bit confused, because I'm not sure what Councillor Stewart means. I think that the phases that we're talking about kind of are what you're talking about as well, because we're talking about phase 1 only being council talking about building a basic framework, phase 2 asking for some feedback now from the public, and phase 3, from the stakeholder group, phase 2, and phase 3 for all the public, anybody that's not using it, or maybe will later, but we want that feedback. And out of all of that information, of course, compiling it and making it happen. So that's the phases that I see here, but is that not what you're seeing?
Well, I'm not a complete idiot.
No, I know, but I'm just trying to understand.
Where I'm coming from is based on past experience in a year and a half, and the different things that we've done in the stage approach, specifically with the station house and the phased approaches that we began with when I first came on council. And it is through my personal experience of how the phased approach works and what I've seen happen, not what is intended to happen, but what I've seen, that I hesitate on the approach. And so, I don't know, I didn't expect that anybody else would agree with me. If I have something to offer, I feel that it could be important, I offer it. But I do have some intelligence, and it's just how I see it. With this particular project in question, I don't know, lessons learned, want to tread carefully, I want to make sure we don't rush, that's all.
Thank you. I think it's important too, for us to make sure we're not mixing the concept of phased construction concept with phased consultation process. I think there's maybe that whole phased term is potentially we're maybe mixing it up a little bit, so. The end game result here would be clear direction on the final product, full stop. And I would respectfully suggest to council that a 2-month window would be more than adequate to get this, to get these 4 phases done. I think this whole thing probably has more than enough notoriety in the community already. Those that would like to speak, I'm sure will be very keen on speaking to this if we're given the opportunity. We don't have to necessarily stretch it out too much longer, but just make sure they're given the opportunity to speak. And I think they'll be well aware of our limitations too, because most of them are taxpayers and they're not keen on having a huge tax increase. So if we temper some of their demands a little bit, I'm sure they'll be respectful of that as well. So, okay, Councillor Erickson.
Yeah, I just want to try and state it more clearly than I did last. I like the options for the development of the workshop at council. I like that we must take time as council to discuss where we're going with this project and how we're going to get there and what the project is. We know the project is going to be for the tourist information and the media. We know that. We passed that. Okay, that's understood. But what I'm trying to say is we must build a building that we want to build council. We can get council from the stakeholders and from the public. I agree with that. I don't mind that. But I think we as council have to set the stage for what we want. And then if we have to change it minorly here or there, that might be, but we should set the stage for what we want that building to look like, to operate like for the future, because it's our building. You don't build a building and you hope that you're going to get an insurance company in and you get somebody else in. You build a building and then you lease it out to whoever you get for the lease. That's how you do it. You don't build a building unless it's a specific building. You build a building for a specific client. So, and then you build it to there, but they pay for all the leaseholds. In this case, we're paying for everything and it's our building. We have to do as council decide which way we go on that. I think that's the key, which we haven't, and that's number 1 phase. And after that, if we decide we got to go to the other options, we have to have stakeholders or public consultation, then we go for it. But right now, we haven't even done that yet. So I kind of like what they did for the phase 1, and I think once we get there, then we can discuss further.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Medlock.
I make a motion that we accept the proposed recommendation here, move forward with that.
I second.
Okay.
Sorry.
Second,
So, I'm definitely in favor of that, but I'd like to just talk a little bit more about the workshop facilitator. Did we include that in the motion or not, or how's that working out?
Council, if I could suggest, because I'm getting the feeling that some of you, if not most of you, would like to have a facilitated process. Why don't we amend the motion to satisfy, I think, most of you, that the second and further, that council direct staff to initiate the consultation process immediately with a planned completion date of 30 September, which gives us about 3 months. We have to engage a facilitator, price facilitators out. And we add another and further to support the facilitator is, and further, a facilitator be engaged and paid for with the existing station house budget, within the existing station house budget.
Would that allow us to get into the September window for the funding?
End of October.
Would that give us enough?
but do we
time?
need 3 months to do this? We're not launching the space shuttle. I mean, 2 months is, that would be 2 weeks for each phase. That's easy peasy.
I only suggest 3 months for a couple of reasons. We're over the summer season, so people, the public, members of stakeholder groups, and perhaps even yourselves have vacation plans. So it is always tough to schedule, and it does give us time to best schedule facilitators as well.
Well,
What sort of cost estimates are we talking on a facilitator? I mean, we've had other things like this facilitated our OCP process, maybe that's a lot bigger project, but as far as professionals coming in and facilitating a session, is that value?
My guess is if we had all 4, if we Had all 4 issues facilitated, we could be in just under 10 grand, including travel. But let us price that out, we will get back to council.
What kind of facility?
Because
What kind of facility? What type of facility?
well, we'd have to do some quick research, but there are facilitators that deal with council planning, council projects. I mean, there are a whole gamut of facilitators out there that we have access to.
Construction projects?
Sorry, construction?
Construction
We can,
projects.
again, that's why it will take time to source the correct facilitator out, your worship. And
Can we leave that out of the
Yeah.
motion for now and then get back to us with that
naturally we
information?
could.
I mean, excuse me,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't necessarily think that the facilitator has to be knowledgeable around construction, because it's really not about construction, it's about engaging the community and the public on this process of what we want. Whether they know about construction or not is really irrelevant, it's just gathering input and feedback to put in a document that's gonna suggest, the way forward. So I personally don't think that that's a criteria setting, piece of it.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor. I'll make 2 quick comments about it. Obviously, whatever council decides as mayor, I will work to best carry out, so that's a given. But the addenda to that would be a personal opinion before the vote. The personal opinion is, I'm a 2-month guy on this, and I don't even think we need a facilitator. This is not a particularly complex process. We're making this a complex process. So I'd rather spend 10 grand on drywall than I would on a facilitator. But that's or drawing. Yeah, I mean it's that's just my personal opinion. But obviously, once a majority vote's taken, horse is dead, we dismount. But okay, motion's on the table. Maybe reread the motion quickly here.
So just to be clear then, we'll take off the end further that I kind of proposed out there. So the motion reads so far in 3 parts. That council receives the Station House project draft consultation plan for information. And further, that council endorse the consultation plan as proposed. And further, that council direct staff to initiate the consultation process immediately with a planned completion date of 30 September.
Or earlier. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I like having a consultant, and only because it keeps us on track and focused. I just wonder if we're gonna come together in a room with ourselves and then the stakeholder groups and the public, and we really don't know the plan sequence of events that we're actually trying to gather information about, and then who's gonna draft up, you know, the document. So I guess I just like that sort of piece of it. It's an objective person that's coming in, that's facilitating that process, and it can just happen. And I think that $10,000 is a lot of money, and I think you can get a lot cheaper than that, personally.
Your worship, staff hears the wish of council per se, and I think we can do that as a background activity in order to facilitate the recommendation as it stands, and we can get back to council with our proposal for facilitators and the costs that have come back, and then council can make a decision moving forward as far as the employment of the facilitator.
Okay.
Okay, I think the motion has been discussed at length here, so motion's on the table. All those in favor? Contrary? Okay, contrary as well. 3 to 4. Motion passes. Okay, thank you very much. Item 5B, we have with us, I guess, Mr. Landon Smith tonight. He's here to speak to us about a remedial order for 417 Rupert Street. Mr. Fortolowski will be speaking to this from a staff perspective. Mr. Bellingham is tied up with family today, so on a well-deserved time off. So, Mr. Fortolowski, and that air conditioning is amazingly effective. If someone can just turn that thing off, that would be great. Because if we start huddling, that's a bad visual. People may misinterpret that. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Fortolowski speaking to the remediation order there.
Yes, Your Worship, to give you some background, on May 9th, at the regular council meeting, council issued a remedial order to clean up the property at 417 Rupert Street, whereby the owner of the property and the tenant occupier have 60 days to bring the property into compliance, and further that the owner and tenant were advised via registered mail that council issued a remedial order and that the parties had 14 days commencing May 9th, 2016 to submit a request for reconsideration by council if they so choose. On May 24th, 2016, staff received a handwritten letter signed by Mr. Ken Smith and Mr. Landon Smith, appointing Mr. Landon Smith as the spokesperson to address council. And in your packages, you have updated pictures of the current condition and recent past condition of the property, which we can discuss, and I suggest best after any representation by Mr. Smith, that's Mr. Landon Smith. Of note, in the letter that he did submit to council, he only wishes to address council on behalf of his parents, and did not state per se that he wants to ask for reconsideration, but in case that may, that may in case be the fact of the matter. So, Your Worship, I humbly suggest that if you're ready to hear from Mr. Smith, that we use it.
Mr. Smith, floor is yours for a couple minutes if you like.
Oh, certainly. Now, today I haven't come to discuss or dispute the condition of the yard that I've been allowed to use for the last decade or so, since my parents handed it over to me when we started having children and whatnot. So today I've come to discuss with you the limitations as far as who's having the say on the condition of the yard down the road at the end of this 60-day term, as far as who gets the thumbs up or the thumbs down to us gladiators, so to speak. And I'd like a little bit of clarity as far as what limitations have been put into place and what actions can be taken.
Well, I think, Mr. Smith, there's Ms. Bellingham has just indicated she wanted a systematic cleaning up of the property. So you like, for instance, you used to mow your lawn. You don't appear to do that anymore. So, I mean, in some ways, I think there's maybe sort of an interest in egging on the district here. You didn't used to park your cars on your front lawn in front of your front door, but now you do. So the problem's been identified, and now you do that. So I think the problem is actually very easy to solve, and it can be very easily solved within the timelines that within the timelines that you have from the district. So there's no onerous burden here.
Yeah.
I mean, if I wouldn't have been mayor, wouldn't be mayor, I would have already been over there with the brush cutter cutting, because it's actually not like cleaning up the front yard is not an onerous task, and we're just saying get her cleaned up a little bit.
Is this about the lawn now, or is this about matters at hand on the?
Well, I think it's about the full aesthetic appearance of the property.
Well, the lawn was short at the time. Like, I'm not trying to play games with you guys, and perhaps it's been represented to you that I've come to play some games and stuff like that, and muddle around and put on a little bit of a show and stuff like that. This is my home. It's been my home for my entire life, and I've expressed interest to council in the past that no discussion goes on unless I'm here and stuff. I did send everybody emails there before the 9th of May asking for any postponement if there was anything on the agenda. Now, being that Ms. Bellingham is part of the spokes of this wheel and stuff like that, I don't know if we should really be discussing too terribly much of this without her being here.
Well, I think that would definitely fall under the subject of not pertinent, because she's on a well-deserved time off. Mr. Forlowski, our head administrative person, is in charge of the file now. So there's certainly no void in administrative leadership. So Ms. Bellingham has done her due diligence with bylaw enforcement. So it's just a case of can you live up to the timelines.
Mr. Mayor, have you got written permission there to give Mr. Forlowski the authority to speak on Ms. Bellingham's behalf? I'm kind of citing the May 9th council meeting where he did demand me having a notarized letter of authority to speak on my family behalf.
Mr. Forlowski is the head administrative, he's the CEO,
Yes?
and from a staff point of view, what he says goes. Obviously, council calls the shots.
Yeah.
Council provides clear direction to our administrative team. Mr. Forlowski is the duly appointed head of our administrative team.
Yes.
And Ms. Bellingham did her homework. It's been properly done. And my question to you would be, can you live up to the expectations of the district in the timelines outlined? That's really the only question that I have.
Well, I'm still a little concerned about, like Ms. Bellingham has been involved with this. I've had discussions with her right from the beginning of this, right? So I have received no communications with her saying that she wouldn't be participating in this, being that we've had so much notice that this was gonna happen on this date. You know, I
Mr.
received no
Smith,
correspondence in change.
I think what
This
you're,
is almost as-
Mr. Smith,
Yes,
I think what you're, this is not Donna's personal project.
right,
She is acting on behalf of the district as an organization.
right,
It's not, she does not have agreements with you.
right, that's fine.
She's acting on a public complaint that was put in a while ago.
Yes.
It was investigated, justified, because there is an issue there. So to play word games on who initially talked to you and who's not here now, Mr. Forlowski is your contact person in the absence of Ms. Bellingham,
Well,
and that's really.
This seems to be kind of assumed there on the spot, where last time we all spoke together, you know, it was expected of me that I had written permission, notarized written permission there. Being a family member of mine, I wasn't able to stand up on behalf of. It seemed like a little bit of a silly technicality to expect, and now that you're not expecting me to demand the same thing is a little bit silly as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I mean, the point of today was to get input from you as to this subject.
Right.
Like, can you meet the timelines? Why do you feel the timelines aren't appropriate? The whole issue is here, do you feel there's not a problem?
Oh,
So
no,
this is totally okay? You consider this yard?
I certainly wasn't coming here to defend the condition of the yard.
So let's just deal with the resolution of the condition. Like, are the timelines that you have in front of you acceptable?
Right, well, you've just been sitting here trying to advocate, representing parties that are involved in stuff as far as the station house. You want to advocate for the parties involved as far as decisions being made there. That's what I'm trying to do here with this whole matter.
Well, I guess the point is, and I think since we're running a little late after the initial
Well,
delegation.
I pay
anyways,
enough taxes there to take up my spare time.
So I think that the point is, do you have any new information that we do not have in our possession that would influence a reconsideration of this issue?
Oh,
That's the issue.
well, you're kind of going past what I'm trying to say here.
Well, I've considered what you've said,
Yes.
and it's not pertinent.
You don't think it's pertinent?
No,
Oh.
because Mr. Forlowski is a designated administrative person taking care of.
Without the same written permission that, like, I'm serious, like, you'd think that one's boss would be allowed to speak on their behalf, which I believe that's what you're trying to say. Also, I believe that the family members of the owners of this property, that being me, should have been qualified to speak on that matter before, right? And we did bring notarized letter on that. I did do what I was asked. So I'm just asking, like, I feel that Ms. Bellingham has been involved with this right from the beginning, and I feel a little more comfortable.
Okay, I think Mr.
At least to postpone until she is.
No, that's not remotely a possibility.
All right,
So,
that's fine.
no, Mr. Smith, so I provided no new information pertaining to the file.
Oh, no, that's
So you're
fine.
welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but
Well,
I would
I have-
consider your
well-
presentation concluded.
Well, it's not.
Well, it's, what is new that you're tabling tonight that we don't have? Period.
Well,
Mr. Forlowski is our administrator.
yes,
He's here to carry out the wishes of
Okay,
the
that's
council.
fine,
He
that's
does
fine.
not need Ms. Bellingham.
all right.
Okay?
That's fine.
So 2 minutes. What do you have to say to us that is new and exciting?
I was
And-
promised 15 minutes and it's only been 7.
Well, we're not going
Well,
anywhere here. We're
all right,
chasing
all right,
our tail.
listen, Mr. Victor, you come over to my house, and you spoke to me, maybe not as the mayor and stuff like that, and you spoke to me about your personal opinions on whatnot like this, right?
I said, just move your stuff.
Yeah,
Get rid of
and
it.
you also told me to make friends up on the Indian reservation and take all my stuff up there.
No, I did not. I
Yes,
said
you did.
you have
I was
the
trying-
majority of your
No,
stuff on this
Mr. Mayor,
reservation.
Mr. Mayor, when we were standing in my front yard, I've got video surveillance that takes audio as well, and I tried to coax you away from the video and audio surveillance. You walked right in the middle of the yard because you didn't want my neighbor who was out in the yard to hear you say this stuff, right? Like, I'm a little bit confused here, like
What I told
I've
you,
got
Landon,
things on record.
what I told you, Landon, is, Mr. Smith, is this is a very easy issue to resolve.
You also
I said,
told me,
if
sir-
I may finish.
All right.
What I said is the majority of your vehicles are parked on the reserve already anyways, so if you have folks that are amenable to storing them there, or keen on storing them there, or willing to help you out, that might be a good option to pursue. And I purposely pulled you away from, just said, hey, Lennon, let's go over here to the center of the yard.
Yeah.
Because it really, although I'm sure your neighbor's concerned about the issue, it really wasn't his business to listen to it either. So I thought, let's just have a friendly chat, get this issue resolved, simple thing to resolve, reinforcing what the staff has already done, simple issue.
Well, that's not what you said, Mr. Mayor.
Well, you're making
No.
stuff up.
Well, no, I've got it all on video, my surveillance video.
Well, I'd love to
As
see
far as the, any conversations that happen around my yard and in my yard with Ms. Bellingham and Mr. Goodman and others, you know, and I don't know, am I as free to put that on YouTube? An edited version or a straight cut version as everybody is here with their videos?
Well, you fill your boots, I guess, but I mean, the reality is, tonight was new information pertaining to this
Right.
file.
All right.
Anything new?
Yes. I didn't defend last time your assumptions that I was trying to make a little game about this. Where I wasn't, and you did come over and you explained to me that you believe that the letters on my front door were left by me, where they were actually taped up there by Mr. Goodman. And I guess he was serving me with these letters and stuff. We received copies in the mail, so that's why these ones were still up there. It generated a little bit of public conversation in the neighborhood there. Whereas trying to find out who I'd offended by this condition of my yard. You know, I had made a verbal application to find out who made this complaint there in order for perhaps me to go and shovel their driveway a little more or walk their grandma home from the grocery store a little more often. I know you know the powerful effects of goodwill and stuff like that, Mr. Mayor. Being that I have no reason to defend my yard, it is messy, and sometimes I feel that, especially when we're busy, we need something to give us a little bit of fire lit under our backside and stuff like that. I do get a little complacent. I work 60 and 70 hours in a week a lot of times, and we've just adopted into our family a new baby and stuff like that. So aesthetics is certainly very, very low compared to a lot of the other things in my life on the list of priorities. So being that I'm not here to argue with you about the little details and stuff like that, the timeline in which we were talking about last time is 60 days from the 9th, I believe it was. Yes, sir.
Your worship, because of this representational meeting here tonight, in effect, if council decides to just carry on with the status quo, no resolution required, because you've already passed one, Mr. Smith will have until August 12th to meet the requirements set out by my colleague and by council, quite frankly, by resolution. If you don't wish the status quo, he's already gained 30 days because of this, but basically, or you could change it.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to point out.
I think we're rather done here.
Well, no, we're
Mr.
not.
Smith.
I've still got more to say about this, Mr. Mayor. Being that I'm doing this by myself, you know, and I still work full-time, I still have my commitments that I've engaged in here. Giving the tea house as an example, you know, I know how you're feeling about the 30th of September being a little bit of a stretch, but I too would like to ask for things to be moved up to the 30th of September as far as the deadline and whatnot, because I too have a summer plan, and we have a little 1-year-old in our family now and stuff like that, and I don't feel that it's fair to expect me to give up my summer or my early parts of the summer any more than it is for the paid administration or staff to, as far as keeping a little more punctual timeline.
Okay, I guess a quick question of council. Now, as Mr. Forlowski mentioned, there's a standing motion on the table that's been voted on and duly is going to be carried out. Barring another decision from council, does anyone on council have any interest in changing the resolve of council in the form of motion? I guess that's it.
All right.
Yeah, so we're status quo stays, so August the, yeah.
If I could, the very first thing that Mr. Smith discussed was, I wrote it down here, he was curious as to who has final say on what, basically on what stays and what goes. Have you had an answer to that question at all?
No, certainly not.
So that's a question.
Okay, Mr. Forlowski.
It is my sincere belief, and I know that Donna and Al have both discussed with you exactly what needs to be required, not only during this process, the official process as far as getting council to agree on the order, but all the way working up to the order. So this is a long time coming, and I have no doubt in my mind that both Mr. Al, our bylaw officer, and our corporate services director have made it clear, or attempted as humanly possible to make it clear to you what is required in order to meet the remedial order.
That's not true, sir. There have been no discussion about that at all. I've asked Ms. Bellingham and Mr. Goodman when they come to my yard, what did they expect? What would be the biggest impression, what would leave the biggest impression upon them as far as their next visit, which I had been inviting them over every week for the first
I guess the
5 weeks.
point would be, let's get something to Mr. Smith in writing detailing what goes and what stays, and then
Oh, I do appreciate you
that's
saying that.
because obviously Mr. Smith is not remembering what transpired, so.
I believe this may have been done, and I can have my colleague provide that shortly upon her return, but you can clearly see that in all good faith, there's been no progress regarding this property from May to June, despite the order of council. That need not necessarily require a change or an alteration of status quo. We'll just provide in order that Mr. Smith can meet the timeline as issued by council.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Mayor, when I first met Mr.
Okay,
No, wait, this
no,
is
Mr.
critical,
Smith,
this is important.
we're done here.
This is very important.
No, we're
All right.
down here.
Why?
Because you've provided no new information.
Well, I am about to
About
provide
Ryan.
more new information.
This is
I
getting,
really-
this
just
is
clean it
getting,
up.
this is getting ridiculous, Mr.
That's fine.
Smith, please.
All right,
We're taking the rest of the meeting if you
All right.
like as an observer, but
that's fine. When
this is getting a
can I have
little
bit
laughable.
of clarity as far as who decides and what gets decided, whether it's an infraction. Like if I leave my ugly barbecue out in the backyard, can the administration order my whole backyard bulldozed and stuff like that? They had mentioned that in the past. She did say if she didn't like something that's going on in the yard, that she could just come in and have the crew clean everything out and start from scratch.
She is probably one of the most easiest people to get along with you'll ever meet, so.
Well, we're looking
she
for
is
clarity.
not a
I'm looking
rash
for some
decision.
clarity here.
You will get it in writing from Mr. Forlowski
All right.
and Ms. Bellingham, okay?
Is that open to reconsideration down the road?
That's open to getting it done on August 12th, I guess is 12th?
August 12th, there will be no.
12th, okay.
August
Excellent.
12th? All right.
Thank you.
That's- Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, we have a few items here. Keep it reasonably short. I had the opportunity to attend the graduation dinner, which, and the graduation itself for the Hope Secondary School, and provided a few words there on behalf of the district. It was quite an honor to be there and invited also would like to provide special public acknowledgement of the good work that the local service groups, family memorial scholarships, and businesses have put in to the grad class once again. And the thing I've said before, and I'll say again, is our economy as a community has gone up and down, but the support for the local graduates has never seen any lull. So that's something I think as a community to be very proud of, and it's something that as mayor, I'm very proud of being a mayor in a community that is so compassionate to young people. We have an extraordinary number of talented young people that have come out of Hope, and this grad class will not be an exception, I know that. So that was I think good news at all fronts. I did, the message I provided was twofold. It's that chase your dreams. Everyone dreams, but not everyone pursues their dreams. So I think it's very important that all young people boldly chase their ambitions. And now is obviously time to do that, not when they have lived their lives and have foregone opportunities. So, and then as well, provided friendly encouragement to be safe out there and take care of each other, because in years past, we did have some circumstances where young people passed on, unfortunately, prematurely, and I have heard no examples of many mishaps, and I certainly hope that continues with this grad class. So that's that for the grad, and thank you to the grad class for the invitation. I thought that was quite nice. I did go on a small road trip, as the adage goes, small road trip. I went to the FCM. Usually the FCM, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, is during grad weekend, and during that I'm not too keen on leaving the community because the grad is quite an important event. This time it was after, so that was fairly convenient. I did drive there. Fuel costs will be claimed, but there's certainly no mileage expense, because when you drive 2,200 kilometers each way, it's a long drive. But I had it was a very interesting opportunity. The Prime Minister was at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities conference. Mr. Mulcair was there. Ms. Diane Watts on behalf of the Conservative Party was there. Elizabeth May was there. I personally prefer the format of the UBCM with the LMLGA a little better, because it is more a consultation with the members. The way the FCM works is you have a provincial board of directors essentially that reports to the FCM, and at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the only real voting that takes place is installing the provincial executive and the FCM caucus. But I guess that makes sense from the point of view of if you had all the mayors and all the council members represented there from across Canada debating smaller issues, it would turn into a bit of a free-for-all. It would make our station house process look like clear. So, you know, the thing the conference was worthwhile. What became very clear was that the infrastructure program, if the provinces collectively, and I guess the way it works, the infrastructure programs, there's partnerships arrived at with all the provinces. And what the one senior federal bureaucrat said is, if the individual provinces don't get on board with the infrastructure program in a timely fashion, the money will be added to the gas tax money. So there's no case of us losing the infrastructure money, which I thought was a good model. What was clear as well was that the infrastructure money, the future intakes would have a very high environmental focus. So I think any discussion we've had about, say, a bikeway to Silver Creek, I think the council's discussed that a number of times. I think that is the kind of project that we should get shelf ready for the next intake, because that will have a you know, pro-environment focus, getting people out of their vehicles onto bicycles, walking more in a you know, safe pedestrian corridor. And I think there's huge opportunity to derive some benefit out of that program if we take that kind of a focus. The gentleman there said that just in future just road repaving or putting in newer sewer lines is not going to be as attractive to the granting authorities as it once was. So it will have to have a very high environmental focus. Attended a number of workshops there. The one thing that was quite interesting, Winnipeg, as everyone knows, has had a number of flooding problems, and they have a very extensive diking network, and they have some very extensive fancy mitigation measures available to deal with flooding. But it seems that very few communities dredge their waterways. And I think federally that is an initiative that has to be discussed more, because taking the Fraser into consideration, for instance, there is not enough money on the planet to properly protect everyone next to the Fraser if it isn't eventually dredged, because the bottom of the Fraser over time is rising significantly. And this is kind of an issue that doesn't seem to be dealt with in a very serious way. So, you know, through my involvement on the Lower Mainland Local Government Association, and I think through our collective involvement at UBCM, I think we have to be very vocal about the whole concept of dredging our waterways in an environmentally sensitive way, because it's pointless to have these emergency measures in place where, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars of damage is done. All of the damage could have been avoided for the most part. So what I will do is all the information I picked up at the FCM, I will just leave in a file up in our council office. If anyone is keen on pursuing and perusing it, they can do so. There is a potential business opportunity that I'm excited about that I will obviously not present on YouTube, because there'll be other communities pursuing it, but I'll report to council and camera on that. It's very compatible with our community, it's very environmentally friendly, and it's something that would provide a number of employees, you know, would require a number of local employees. So that's kind of a really exciting thing that I'd like to report to council later. So that was my week. And Councilor Smith.
Mine's easy. Brigade is meeting tomorrow at 7:15 for the rec center.
Nothing further to report. You high work away.
So how safe are the commercial vehicles on the?
They're safer.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilor Dybel?
So a few things that I've been busy doing. First of all, I attended the service capacity review with council and staff last week. Very informative, and I think that the staff certainly have their work cut out for them and for the next year or two. So great work done with facilitated by Gordon McIntosh. I sit on the Rural Recruitment and Retention Committee with Fraser Health. We had a meeting, and I would like to have that committee, or Fraser Health Recruitment and Retention from Surrey, come out and do a presentation in the fall. In fact, the October 11th meeting, just to talk about what they're doing to showcase and highlight Hope as a potential for workforce in Fraser Health, and the opportunities that present in Hope, and how challenging and difficult it is to recruit professionals to Hope. So they've been working with Advantage Hope on highlighting the lifestyle of Hope, and how we are only 2 hours from the city. We have the lifestyle here. Why not move to Hope if you're you know, a physiotherapist, if you're in that field of work. So if I will talk with the administration at Fraser Health to have them contact the office to become a delegate for that, to make those arrangements, that would be great. We are losing 2 international doctors at the end of the summer, and there are 2 new ones coming in. So, so there's a net zero effect there. We talked about policy development for the application for the forgivable grant for the CARRIED program. We set aside $3,000 in the budget this year for that process, and CARRIEDs are in short supply here in Hope, and not a lot of people are wanting to move to Hope for the CARRIED program. So we had a discussion around how maybe if we made it an opportunity for somebody local, who's living local, to apply for a forgivable loan basically from the district, who would have a return to service back to the lodge or in Hope through the carry program for a 3-year return to work. So Mr. Forlowski and I did meet to talk about what that policy might look like, got some criteria, and I believe that that will be presented in the coming month or so. The next intake for the carry program is in the fall, so hopefully we could have something in place for that. Attended the emergent waste presentation at the Legion and just was there as a listener. And I will be on holidays for the rest of the month of June and returning back into the community on July 11th. So I will miss the next council meeting at the end of June.
And I hope you don't think about us on this vacation.
I won't be, I'll be with
Yeah, you
you.
won't be. Enjoy.
Thinking of nothing.
Well, enjoy your well-deserved time off. That's good. Councillor Stewart?
Okay, I'll keep it short. I attended Young Entrepreneurs Day at Coquihalla Elementary School. It was put on by the grade 4 class. And I want you guys to take a look at this because I think this is a new thing for the Tourist Info Center. It's just one of the highlights of that day. So they all have their little booths, they set the cost, they make their presentation, they sit and they sell what they've made. And so this is a magnet, and it says Hope BC on it. It's a pot of gold, and inside is a fleck of gold and some garnet, I believe, from Emery Creek. And these were $2. And are they ever wonderfully done? There was so many wonderful ideas. There were bookmarks, there were hockey sticks and balls. Some places were sold out within half an hour of opening. And so we've got some really great ideas for businesses, I think, in the distant future, but it's pretty exciting to see their little minds working. I also attended a workshop in Vancouver. It's called Elimina, Meetings, Rules, and Effective Decision Making. It was a wonderful day. There were 7 people in the workshop. One was a lady from PSEC. There were 3 other trustees, superintendent, and a representative from the advisory board for Ministry of Community, Sport, and Culture. And so we had a really awesome day. We did some role playing, talked about things that affect good decision making, and how not to hold your voice back, but to at least offer a piece of a puzzle that may or may not help with the decision making. Also attended the service capacity workshop, and I thought that was excellent to just spend the day with staff and listen to their concerns and listen to their wonderful ideas. Wow, you know, if they all came to fruition, this town would be amazing. So I look forward to seeing some of those ideas roll out, and thank you for the invitation to attend. Glad I did. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Councillor Medlock?
Yeah, thank you. Attended some of the same events. The service capacity review was very good. It's basically a full day with staff as well as council there. Then the second day, staff was tasked to sort of figure out how to deal with council's wishes. And then there was a report back, and we were all in check. We were all on the same page. So I thought that was a really worthwhile thing. And then I also attended that emergent waste solutions presentation that was held at the Legion. There were some good questions asked there. I think a lot more clarity was brought due to information, so that was a good event to attend as well. That's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Councillor Erickson?
So, last Tuesday, I drove out to Jasper and went through the tourist facilities at Jasper. 3 million people go through Jasper a year. And so when I was out there, I decided, well, I'm fairly close to Edmonton. Why don't I drive out to Vegreville and look at this emergent waste place up there? And it's called Advanced Thermolysis System. So I spent 4.5 hours and drove to there, and I got there at 5 minutes to 12. And driving into Vegreville was a great big sign that says tourist information and economic development. As soon as you drive in, and I get there 5 minutes to 12, and I go in, and there's a lady at the front desk. She says, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, I'd like to talk to the economic development officer." She's standing right there. So the next 4 hours I spent with her. she put together, and it was actually kind of a miracle, because when I went out there, all the principals of the system were there. They were having a council meeting at 4:30 that afternoon. So I got to meet with all of them, went through the system, went through the whole business aspect. We talked, went and saw the old system in place. The only problem is they didn't have the boiler in place. It was supposed to come from Saskatoon. I said, well, you told us at a meeting that you were supposed to start up in April. He said, yes, but the Environment Alberta required them to have the boiler engineered. So they had to take the boiler, send it to Saskatoon, take it all apart, redesign it, build a new boiler, and it was supposed to come that day. They were waiting for it that day. But they got news that it was on its way and it would be there the next day. This was Wednesday, last Thursday. So they feel within a month, maximum 2 months, they'll be running and doing all their preliminary testing. And it's really interesting. Alberta is going to be doing all their testing for the environmental testing to make sure this is a process that they think is clean. And the economic development officer was just really excited that they're going to be the first in Canada to have this system working. And she said if it's working, they are going to promote many more types. They're doing rubber right now. They're going to do tire rubber. Many more types of system working in that area. And so it was a real pleasure to be there. I left at 4 o'clock and drove from Edmonton to Red Deer and back home. Got home at 5 in the morning. But it was a good interview. The people were all very knowledgeable. They were willing to offer anything. I asked, I think it was Kevin, I said, Kevin, you haven't said one thing. How are you going to heat this? Well, he said, it's with a boiler. You start it up with diesel, and then the gases come off the system, and then it keeps the system hot and fired. Heated up to 1100 degrees. They had the system running when we were there, and you could hardly hear it. I thought it was the buzz of the transformer. That's how quiet the system is. It's really, I took a lot of pictures. I think if this is true, and it looks like it is, it would be a real plus for Hope. He said, Kevin said that the problem is the region district has some negative regarding pyrogenics. And I said, well, this isn't pyrogenic. This has to do with any smoke or any environment like that. You're not burning anything. And he said, you'd have to have council, like our council, if we think it's good, we'd have to have council talk to the region district and see if it could be put in here. Anyways, very informative. I have a lot of pictures we took. I feel really good about it, and I think if it works the way they said it is, it'd be very, very good for Hope. He said for that plant, which is supposed to run 12 tons a day, he said it'll probably be more like 10 tons until they get all the bugs worked out of it. And I said, how many people will you be hiring? He said 15 full-time people, which would be a real plus if we could get even a small one like that here to start. Anyway, that was my week, so that's all I have to do.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. My exciting week consisted of working, and a lot of driving, and that's about it. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, just a quick point directed to Councillor Erickson's comments are pertaining to the emergent waste solutions. Appreciate the initiative, absolutely. It's good that you had a council member there looking at it. Certainly demands more investigation. Now, obviously, when those folks speak about it, they have a very specific agenda, and you know, an impartial evaluation of what they're doing is important. I know a lot of people, myself included, are here because we do have a very positive environmental quality in our community, air quality, water quality, all those good things, and we just have to be very careful that anything we invite and endorse doesn't jeopardize that. And we're obviously keen on new jobs because we're seriously lacking in them, but there's a lot of questions that have to be asked on this before, you know, council takes a stand on this.
Just so you know, Alberta Environment are doing all the independent testing on this. They have arm's length testing. That's what they're very proud of. They said we're going to do our testing, but they're going to do the testing too. So it's going to be, you know, it's not going to be them doing the tests so they can be as good as the environment, because they're just as concerned about it.
No, and that's a very valid comment, but of course, having recently driven through Alberta and Saskatchewan, you know, their airshed is essentially the whole province because there are no mountains. We're at the end of a mountain, and it's you know, a mountain range, and we have to be very, very careful as to any pollutants that come in or originate here. So more investigations required. But it's good you checked. Okay, thank you very much. And under item 8, permits and bylaws, we have one here. Maybe I'll just read it out to get a motion, then we can get staff to speak to this. Item 8A. You come in, you want to- Maybe a 2-minute break here, so we don't keep Councilor Schoon out of the loop here.
Oh, go ahead. I'm good.
You're good?
I'm good, go ahead.
Okay. She's good. Okay. Flood and erosion hazard development permit at 19512 Silver Skagit Road. Recommendation that a flood and erosion hazards development permit be prepared in order to support the placement of a modular home and all approved accessory structures on the property at 19512 Silver Skagit Road, and further that upon receipt of an acceptable certified report from a qualified professional confirming a site-specific safe building location for a modular home and all accessory structures, authorize the Director of Community Development to endorse development permit and required covenant documents, and further that for purposes of the development permit validity period, the conditions of the development permit shall expire on June 13th, 2018, and further that for purposes of any associated building permit that the substantial start of any construction shall mean the completion of the foundation of the proposed modular home or flood protection works as certified safe by a qualified professional. Motion to that effect, please, and then we can make some discussion. Okay, Councilor Bible, Councilor Erickson, staff reporting.
Your Worship, Honorable Council, the property at 19512 Silver Skagit Road is located in Area B of the Silver Hope floodplain, and the location of the proposed modular home is going to be out of the riparian assessment area, so a riparian areas report will not be required. However, a site-specific report proving the site safe for the use intended for the purposes of this modular home will be required, and the applicant has retained Madrone Environmental to do this study and report.
Okay, any questions or comments from council? Okay, motion's on the table. All those in favor? Thank you. Item B, development variance permit. I'll read out the suggested motion and then staff report, and a gentleman opposing the variance is here as well, so certainly Mr. Tidball can speak to it if he so desires. Recommendation is that council approve the issuance of a development variance permit to relax the 30-meter minimum lot depth requirement at 627 Park Street in order for the owner to subdivide the land. So a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Councilor Daigle moving. Second. Councilor Medlock seconding. Staff report, please.
Your Worship, through you, this development variance permit is for the purpose of varying the lot depth of the property or the proposed or remainder parcel that would come, we'll say subsequently through subdivision. Right now, that line in question is at 29.01 meters. And just from our bylaws perspective, you need a required 30 meters. So the relaxation would be for that 1 meter. In this case, this remainder lot would become the panhandle lot. Currently, it's being accessed from the lane. The new lot that's going to be created will be from Park Street.
Okay. And Mr. Tidball, you don't have to say anything, but you're listed here as opposed, so you're welcome to do so.
Totally opposed to it because I don't want 2 houses on that lot. If the developer would like to tear down the existing property, put a new house on, fine. But those lots, we were at a council meeting years ago and we specifically asked for that lot, my lot, which is 628 Douglas Street, they were specified as one house, one lot, or one house on the lot. And that gave people a nice large lot, and everybody in the block agreed with it at that time. and I stand opposed to subdividing that lot.
Additional comments from council? Okay, Councillor Crowd?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So was there any record or letters stating that council would not turn this high-density zone, like after those lots were sold?
I'm not sure what specifically was on there, but I know at the time they were supposed to be single-family dwellings on those lots. We specifically asked that they couldn't be used for high density because my lot at 628 Douglas, originally a person could put either a 4 or a 6-plex on there, like there is across the street on Douglas Street. But we specifically asked at that time, and they were zoned as single-family lots, single dwellings.
Just a quick point, there's no perpetuity concept. Councils change, different decisions can be made, obviously, as you're well aware. So council cannot bind the community in perpetuity to a decision that they make at that time. So that maybe was their intent at the time, but that doesn't necessarily mean we can't change it. Councilor Beverly.
Thank you. Through you, there's no covenant on the property stating that at this point in time. It's a single-family lot with the potential, because of the size of the lot, to subdivide it, given the size of the lots that were allowed to build on. Is that correct?
Your worship, through you, I believe it does have clear title, meaning that there is no covenants from the municipality states as such.
And in our OCP, we talk about high-density zoning areas, and this would be considered one of those areas?
Your worship, through you, it would not be considered high density. We are just adding a unit. It would be called infill development here.
Okay. It's essentially a 1 meter variance.
May I speak again? So consequently, if that's the case, everybody on that street can get a variance, probably, and add a house on their lot. Because all the lots are approximately the same size.
I guess there's potential for additional development if the house is a land property. Mr. Hill?
Your worship, if it's a similar process going through, it'd be once again coming up to a council decision. Ultimately, if there is a variance required or needed for, let's say, a new lot to be created.
I don't think it's a good idea to do that because you're setting a precedent in that anybody that has a lot that size can decide to subdivide, tear down their existing house, put 2 houses on a lot. If you're going to make a variance for one, you're going to wind up making a variance for different ones. That's why I'm not in favor of subdividing that lot.
This is going to be one of those unfortunate decisions that whatever council decides, someone will be upset. Typical council decision. Okay, Councilor Crowd?
So just a comment, I feel that, yes, times change and people buy lots and things are said and all of that, but I think that I'm kind of feeling that in this particular case, if council has made the decision at that time with the idea that these particular lots be kept as large lots, because the particular people there, I guess, of the day, were not in favor of higher density. I feel kind of at a crossroad here because clearly only one of those lots now will be changing. And that's normal when we do zoning amendments or if we do variances or those things. That's normal. It's not necessarily classified as a precedent so much as I hate to use the word spot change,
But it is a precedent because it's the first one. And now other people can come say, okay, my lot's just as big as that one. Now can I get a variance too? So if you make a variance on one, you open the door to make a variance on others.
Yeah, through you, just for clarification, is that 6-meter side strip, is that the road to access the back house on this lot?
Your worship, through you, in accordance with the zoning bylaw, if you're gonna have a panhandle lot, you need a 6-meter access strip. That would be a driveway, not a road.
That's right. And it would be owned by the back lot?
Your worship, through you, yes, that is correct.
But essentially, it's a 1 meter shortage, correct?
Your worship,
That's
through you,
what it amounts to.
yes. In this case, where lot A, as shown on the previous report, the rear lot line becomes the front lot line of that panhandle. And so the lot depth is measured from front lot line to the rear. In this case, yes, it is a 1 meter difference.
Yeah, okay. Councilor Stu?
I'm just curious, so when there's a variance, it's per lot, right? So if we do agree to this one, and someone down the street says, well, I want the same thing, they still have to go through the process, correct?
Your worship, through you, a development variance permit usually gets registered to the property title that it's intended for. Yes, there would be a similar process involved.
Any additional comments from council? All those in favor? Contrary?
I'm contrary,
Okay,
like that registered, please.
okay. Motion passes. Thank you. Correspondence. Motion received. Thank you. Councilor Medlock. Councilor Stone. All those in favor? Thank you. Question period for items relevant to the agenda. Ms. Hines?
Yes, on behalf of the chamber, when did the chamber become designated in the documentation as a stakeholder? Was this discussed with anybody at the Chamber of Commerce?
No, we were providing, staff was providing a list of potential groups that would like to be consulted. And the chamber has on many occasions indicated an interest in the Station House project, so there's no harm in including them in a stakeholders listing. You know, we don't necessarily need their permission to include them as a potential stakeholder. We invite them to partake in the discussion. And if they choose not to partake, that's totally their business. Just like the economic consultation process, we invited them to partake and, you know, they, partway through the process, they decided not to partake. So, I mean, that's totally their business. We're not trying to force them into an area they don't want to become part of. But, you know, there's no harm in including them, and that wasn't intended to be an all-inclusive list either. That was just
Well, on behalf of Stephen,
yeah.
who has asked me to say this, for clarification, we don't mind providing help or opinion, but we are not a stakeholder or have any involvement in any way.
Okay.
So I was asked to say that. And I do have a question. That sign that has gone up outside of the station house, who put that sign up?
District.
The district put that sign up?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Excuse my ignorance.
Yeah.
How many phases is this transfer station going through? And from what I read, now an architect has to be hired and so forth. Should this not have been done many moons ago? And with one deadline passing for a grant, and as you yourself said, if it's not environmentally friendly, chances of getting a grant coming our way later, somewhere down the line.
I guess a couple quick points. It's a completely different grant bucket. We're not, that wouldn't be an infrastructure grant we'd be applying for. It's like a community dividends fund. So a different grant fund altogether. And the consultation process, that's not for construction phases. That's just four very quick and distinct processes to come up with a final product that we're all looking for, because the decision of the thought of council was that as landlords of this property, in the long term, we want to make sure we get it right when we complete it. And you know, thanks to the good works of our CAO, Mr. Fortolowski, we actually now have ownership of the property, essentially at no cost to the district. So it makes a lot of sense to plan for the future and make sure all the stakeholder groups are contacted. Now, obviously, if some stakeholder groups don't want to partake in the project or in feedback on the project, that's totally their.
That's not what was said.
Yeah.
It was
You
said
have no involvement in it.
that we welcome providing help or opinion, but we are not a stakeholder as described in the documentation, which I also read online.
Yeah. Well, fair
Doesn't
enough.
mean we don't want to be involved.
We just want to feel that you're included. We just want you to know that, hey, you're welcome to, attend the meeting and say what you want to say. That's just trying to build community here.
We
So
understand
that
that.
means not excluding people, so.
We understand
as you know.
that.
Just in addition to this, if the public process does come forward, is there gonna be a set, this is how much it's gonna cost the people of Hope? Is there gonna be a figure, total for the transfer station?
Well, I think
So
that's
we know
the-
how much is going, because right now I hear 4 or 5 different figures. And
Well,
that's-
and unfortunately, I guess this week, Letter to the Editor is a good example of facts taken out of context. There was, facts taken out of context by a certain individual for a political agenda or plan. But we'll make sure that, as you were, I think you were here during the first part of our discussion about the station house consultation process. The initial council huddle will be decide, okay, how are we going to handle this financially? Will it be we haven't fully decided yet, but my assumption will be that we'll have a very fixed budget and we'll just go from there.
Okay, because
So
I was
either
under the
we-
impression before it was fixed before, and apparently it's not the same budget that was a while ago as well.
Well, I mean, if
so
there's an
that's
opportunity to apply for a grant, we can leverage the money we're putting in anyways. That makes sense. We get more mileage out of the money that we'll be spending. So that's the whole rationale behind using the money that we were planning on spending, but taking it to the next level by using grant monies to get more mileage out of the monies we had available, so.
But was there a good reason to miss the May 31st grant deadline? I was under the impression that all the i's were dotted and the t's were crossed and everything was a go, and then I read that it didn't go through for whatever
Well,
reason.
the majority of council felt it was too big a price tag, so that was the bottom line. And the neat part about the Rural Dividends Fund is other community groups applied for it. So there will be, for that same fund, so there'll be money coming into the community anyways for other groups potentially. So there still will be a district benefit for that dividend fund that'll be derived by the residents of the community, but not obviously for the station house
Well, I was
project.
looking for the station house because that's what I was told.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's
consider this
misinformation,
disappointing in that way.
unfortunately. It's not one, that fund was not specific to only the station house. Other community groups could apply, so.
No, but when we discussed it, and I do recall a discussion with you probably several months ago now, that was specific to the station house as well. Monies were hopefully coming to that, or from that particular fund for the station house. So when I read that the 31st deadline had come and gone and nothing had been submitted, I was a bit surprised.
Yeah, we were going
Disappointed.
to, as a district, apply for that, yeah. But the figure was too large for the stomach of council, so. Okay. Okay, I guess that's, Mr. Orders.
Yes, just on a point of order on your minutes for the May 24th meeting, the third reading of the car wash zoning change. The motion, the third reading was not defeated, it was tabled, yet the minutes reflect that it was defeated.
Yeah. Well, see, we missed that, so that's a good.
We'll confirm that, the effect is the
That
same.
was that, yeah.
Yes, but the proponent of it could say, well, I'm going back to square one again.
Well, essentially, it's held in abeyance until information is coming back, correct?
Your worship, I'll have the Director of Corporate Services confirm that, but again, the effect is largely the same.
Yeah.
At any point, even after defeated motion, someone can try to go back to square one and ask council to change the money.
No, but I think from the point of view of that if it's tabled, it's held in abeyance until additional information. Because in discussion, if I recall it correctly, was we were asking the developer, the proponent, to
But the
provide
minutes
this.
reflected it was defeated.
Yeah, so
We'll just make that clarification.
Oh, and another thing, I think I was caught in a time warp. This conversation that went on tonight about the station house happened about 25, 28 years ago.
You have a good memory.
Would have needed less work then.
Trust me, I do.
Okay. Anyone opposed to adjourn the regular meeting and head to the in-camera?
Yeah, please do.
Thank you.